All right, it is episode 88 of the Zenspath 4-Button Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Powers, and joining me once again, returning as always, Steven. Yeah. And our unmasked, still masked, unforeseen friend, Chris.
Hello.
He's alive. So, it's a miracle. Sorry you weren't feeling good last episode. That's why you weren't on here, but hey, you're back.
Yeah, he's healthier. He looks a lot better now.
Thank you for that. Yeah, caught the plague while I was out with family. Perfect timing.
So you should have gotten the plague this time. That way you can be like, well, I'm going to have to just go play Zelda. Sorry.
Oh no, yeah. Relapse.
Relapse.
In Japan, they mostly declared it a Zelda holiday.
I thought they only did that with Dragon Quest.
No, it happened again. They said a lot of people called out of work today.
I get that. I'd be like, yeah.
Tears of the workforce.
That's a lot of tears jokes. I notice we're going to be going through this episode. So that's a good one. Tears of the workforce. This would be Tears of the podcast.
There you go.
I don't know. I thought about us starting to actually name the episodes again. That would be a pretty good one. So, all right, let's jump into what we've been doing. Chris, since you have been sick for lately and haven't had as much to do, we'll start with you. What you been up to, man?
Well, when I got back home, I loaded up the Street Fighter VI demo. Unfortunately, I couldn't play it on my laptop. It wasn't beefy enough. But I had fun with that one. Played a little bit of the World Tour. I still do not like modern mode. I'm classic mode all the way. Played Super Mario Odyssey while I was waiting for Breath of the sequel. And then when that came out, I played that.
I love Mario Odyssey. I'm curious what they're going to do with after that. It's been a good couple of years.
Mario and Zelda are always tough acts to follow. At least with Zelda, they just decided to take what they already had and add more.
Boy, did they add a lot more. All right. Steven, what you been up to?
Well, I got into like a point-and-click adventure frame of mind for a little bit, so I did play Brock the Investigator. It is kind of a, kind of like Tailspin type animation style. Looks really nice, but you can actually switch in between doing like a point-and-click adventure and be a full-blown fighting game like Streets of Rage, because there's things you need to beat up, there's people you can beat up, things you can destroy. Very unique game. Was very welcome. I'm going to explore it more. I just touched on the demo, but I'm going to probably dip into that more. Then a really weird one, Dropsy, who's a clown. It's a game where you can hug almost everything. In fact, they encourage it. It's part of their like achievements even. Whether you play it on Steam, Switch, PS4, it's hug everything.
Okay.
Other than that, I know today's a big day. Today is the Diablo 4 server slam. So that's what everybody's been talking about today. You can, if you get to level 20 and you beat the area boss, you'll get a horse mount for the full game when it comes out. But you only have until Sunday at 9 a.m. is the last time you can fight the boss. And another thing that happened today, which is pretty special, is it's Tony Hawk's 55th birthday.
Good old Tony Hawk. Do a kickflip.
There's probably something else that came out, but that's what I've got.
Fair enough.
And then other than that, today and this week has been tons of gaming stuff coming in that I picked up. Just to show off some of them, we all know the different special things you got with your Tears of the Kingdom. So if you got one from Walmart, you got the wall scroll. This is not the gold one because that was only 100.
Jeez.
Best Buy gave out the art print, which came before the collector's edition of mine. My collector's edition is delayed. This poor game had to release alongside the Diablo 4 Server Slam, so it's got a lot of competition today. We got Dokapon Connect, which is a re-release from PS2.
I was going to say Diablo 4 did this on the worst possible day, but then I thought about it. I'm like, no, that probably limits how many people do it. So they're like, hey, it makes it really rare.
Right? And then there's a little game people know called Xenocrisis. It's kind of like Smash TV meets Metal Slug.
Yes.
With a splash of difficulty. They did offer physical editions. In the beginning, it was for Switch, PS4, Xbox, and even Neo Geo and Dreamcast. I recently got a GameCube copy.
I debated on getting the N64 one.
So I have the GameCube one here.
Nice.
And then, yep, I did get the N64 one too. I love the color schemes are all correct, purples and yellows. Looks really nice. Lucky I have it digitally.
Nice. That's great.
And then the thing nobody expected, not even Chris, I have the Fire Emblem Tea collection.
What?
Where you can get... My wife's excited because we now have a selection of tea. Each tea is actually represented by a weapon as well.
So if you drink the tea, does that diminish the collector's value?
Not for me, it won't, because I really just
don't drink the tea.
You know what? I was like, where else am I going to get like video game tea?
I'm sure it exists, but not to that extent.
And it all looked so fancy, I couldn't resist.
Wow. Okay.
Especially since you're not normally a tea person. I'm a little surprised.
Well, I said my wife is really excited because this is something we can share. I can look at the box and she can try the tea.
All right. Well, let me know which ones she likes the most, I guess.
That's interesting.
Came with my scroll. I think this is something people are excited about today.
Oh, what's that?
But I don't want to open this one. I want to open the one that came with my collector's edition, which is tomorrow, with my amiibo and with my.
Just so you know,
case.
That case is identical to the one in your collector's edition.
Well, yeah. Well, my controller's with me and not.
Oh, mine's being
not waiting for me at the store.
Oh.
Why do you want to open up the collector's edition if you have that one physical already?
Well, because the collector's edition has a book, pins, just a lot more going for it.
I guess, but I would think you'd open up the one that.
And then next week, so I will share. I promise to share in the next podcast my Zelda fork and spoon when they arrive next week.
I can't wait for those.
I better see you eat something with those.
Nothing.
Oh God. Y'all talk about that. I'm going to go grab my stuff real quick because I forgot to grab it.
As soon as I find like a gaming plate, I'm going to put them all framed so I can just have a dinner that nobody's going to eat.
What a waste. You could have you could cook one of those things that Link cooks and just have it with your Zelda fork and spoon.
What a mistake.
Exactly. The one the
blurred out.
Yes, the blurred out, disgusting monster food, whatever's.
I almost fell. Just knocking stuff over. Ignore me. I'm being a hazard in my own house.
Oh, boy.
All right. That's good for live action stuff. So I got the wood plate that you could get, which is, I don't know, it's a wood plate. It's just kind of weird.
Connect to anything? It's just a plate?
Just wooden plaque. That's literally all it's called.
What did you want it to light up or something?
I thought that it would be
awesome.
Something that would hook up to the deck or something. Because I see a lot of display plates that hook up to your Switch dock.
Well, on a side note, there is a Club Nintendo glow-in-the-dark keychain for it.
Yeah, and I don't have enough points. I got to get through that. But see, this is the case that came out of my collector's edition. It's the exact same standard case. So if you open this one, you can enjoy it now and still mess with the other one, which I have my copy of Skyward Swords in here because I had been playing it last and just swapped cartridges.
Hey, get out. I'm not going to play you for another 6 months.
Oh, boy.
I'll probably get back into it some more. It was actually not a bad port. But this is one of the things I was really happy about is the amiibo, which looks really nice.
Does it say what it does?
there's apparently like 55 different amiibo effects.
Oh no, not
that
this
give
again.
they give you different custom gliders and things. Apparently, most of them you can unlock in the game, so you can go back and earn those. But this has given me excuse. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to get all of my amiibos back out and put their display cases up, which I have every North American amiibo except for one, which I'm trying to find the Dark Edition Bowser from Skylanders. That's the only one I don't have.
That was a thing.
Yeah. I have the regular Bowser, regular Donkey Kong, the Dark Edition Donkey Kong, vehicles for both sets. I just don't have that damn Dark Edition Bowser. Once I get him, I have every amiibo they've released in North America so far. Even the cereal box.
Except for Mithra.
That's wild.
Well, they haven't come out yet.
I know. I still need to get it. Come on, Target.
But they look great to display. We actually do use them in the house. Like my whole family will come in here and scan stuff. I'll probably get more friends again because they'll want to come over and scan stuff.
Oh boy.
I've already had one of a kid I work with who's like, "Hey, can you bring your Twilight Princess one in? Because I want to get Epona."
That does bring up an interesting question.
Yeah.
What are you guys' thoughts on the amiibo cards that people sell?
I get why people would do it. It's kind of it's not like these things are easily available for everything. Like I collect the actual figures, but sometimes people don't want to open them, but be able to use them. Or if you just can't get a hold of them, it's an alternative to get. I don't see a major issue with it. It's not like it's stopping Nintendo from making these or making money on them. And I even have one of the little readers that you can program different amiibo onto. And I use that for ones I didn't open, like Detective Pikachu and stuff like that, the really big one.
Yeah, I was almost in that boat. I had doubles of all of them, so I just opened certain ones except for Smash Brothers. And, I see it as akin to the if you own the game, you can have the ROM type of mentality. So
Yeah.
if you own the amiibo, but you're just like, it looks really good the way I have it, I'm not going to say don't get the cards, because if it's going to keep your figure pristine, go for it. If that's
On the
how
back
you want
here,
to enjoy it.
shows, I guess you get a sword and then a different glider that you can get for some of the stuff, and different characters do different things. Now, if you really want to make collectors cry, oh, what's this, guys? Oh no, look, we're just going to rip that off and open it.
Oh.
I open my amiibos, people.
I do that in front of the wife, and she says it causes a lot of anxiety, and why would I do that? But
My wife doesn't care.
I've ripped like 50 amiibos in front of her. I was like, look at this. Isn't this nice? And I rip it in half.
I'm going to use this, so I'm not like freaked out about it. Though on the plus side, Nintendo has stopped putting the metal in the bottom. So you can use these in the package.
Oh, that's new.
I still open it, though, because my display case was custom made by a friend of mine. And they are actually milled on the bottom to fit the bases right in there, so they sit flush.
Nice.
So they're nicely organized and spaced out. So here you go. If you're watching this podcast, you can see the probably kind of out of focus Link with his hand. He's actually very detailed. Like, I'm kind of worried those fingers, you ever drop them, they're going to break.
He's not like that, the original Link Smash Brothers standing on a solid block of piss.
So, no, thankfully. But there is one anachronism I've just realized about this. He has the Master Sword and the hand, which you can't have at the same time.
Well, people don't know that yet. They might at this point. But...
I mean, you might later on. You probably do, but I know right now I can't. So...
You're saying I can't go Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan?
And the last thing, I do have the collector's edition with its lovely
that
pin
24-hour
set
wait
and everything in here. The steel case is nice. Let's pop this open and we'll just take a look at it. Yeah, this is a Zelda episode, people. Just deal with it.
Tears of the podcast.
Right. So the steel case is just some of the wall art that you see from the opening, so it's not really spoiling anything for people that much. Like,
is that thicker than normal? That looks big.
no,
Okay, maybe not. Maybe that was just
it's
a
standard
plastic.
size.
Okay.
I haven't opened it yet. I'm curious if there's anything in. Oh, okay. There actually is a little bit of art on the inside, just more wall scrolls. Oh, it's showing the battle. That's cool.
Spiffy.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. I haven't opened up the book yet. I won't touch that until after I finish the story mode. That's kind of my rule on that.
If they're willing to go after leakers over the art books, then I'll wait.
But I bought it. I mean, someone's already beat it, so.
Gotta love that. Be like, phew, I'm glad that was $70 well spent.
Yeah, but now he's infamous.
Yeah, somebody was like, yeah, he was probably playing the downloaded version, like the illegally downloaded one, and just kept his mouth shut until the game launched.
I can believe that. I can absolutely.
There's no way you just magically get that fast. So, all right. Well, now that we've had our released our Zelda love into the air there, for anyone watching, hope you enjoyed. Let's go ahead and move on to the news. So this is one that popped up today that I wanted to start this off with, since we were already talking about some Nintendo stuff, and we're going to be kind of going back and forth into a little bit here. Are you guys familiar with the accessory company Dbrand?
Yep.
They were last known for their legal fight with Sony about the PlayStation 5 covers that they made, because they made alternate covers and colors and things. Sony sued them, won the lawsuit. They were forced to take them down, and they had to come up with a second edition that was shaped differently and basically gave a big FU to Sony about it. Well, now they're going after Nintendo, and I'm kind of have mixed feelings on this one. So they've released a clone skin for the Nintendo Switch dock that looks like the dock you get with Tears of the Kingdom Edition OLED Switch, but with a few little extras hidden in there. Hidden on the front and written in a Hylian-like text, but it's not actually Hylian. It's almost like the Unknown from Pokemon. They look like the letters. It states, "Go fuck yourself, lawyers." And then around the center logo on that, it says, "This funds our legal defense."
Oh, boy.
So on their website, Dbrand states, under a section they titled "The Power of Plagiarism," they state, quote, "Contrary to popular belief, you need to spend money to save money, specifically by giving it to us. You see, when one of the world's most litigious companies announces a $359.99 price tag to replace your Switch with a limited edition variant, only Dbrand is up to the challenge of charging you slightly less for a creative reinterpretation of their overpriced novelty console. If a dollar saved is a dollar earned, Clone of the Kingdom," that's what they call it, "is the easiest $310.04 you've ever made." They're asking for a legal fight, and I think they want it on purpose. They probably realized their attention with the Sony battle probably got them more eyeballs on them than anything they had done. So now they're hoping to fight with Nintendo, kind of poking the bear, going like, "Oh, you won't dare sue us," as we, literally call it plagiarism and steal your idea and
as an artist I'm friends with would say, not that you're bitter or anything.
So I wanted to get y'all's thought on this. I get making the skin. I actually don't see a problem with that. But it's kind of weird that they're just like, "Oh, well, if you make these and you sell it, then, that's Nintendo being all greedy and stuff." But companies do this all the time. Like Sony released a PlayStation 4 that was Spider-Man themed. They've released Star Wars editions. Nintendo has had a long history of releasing different colors and types. That's nothing new. I have many of them. God help me on that. So I don't know. This seems like they're just poking at them on purpose, is how I feel. But what do you guys think, Steven?
I just think they're poking the beehive. They're bitter over what happened with Sony, and somebody just thought that, hey, we can be a blip on the radar during a big release by doing something just slightly off the cuff or controversial by doing something outlandish like this. So I think it's just more just a PR stunt. And for all we know, like once they sell through those, the next batch might not even have that on there. Who knows? Because to be honest, you can go on Amazon. Like you don't need um, a lot of theirs because you can buy like a slip-on cover that lights up nowadays. So they have those. So I originally thought Dbrand was mostly stickers until they started making those Sony plates, which I felt was new for them. And then when they got that shut down, I don't think they've forgotten about that, and this shows it.
Yeah. Chris, what's your thoughts on it?
It's very strange that they're going this specific. Honestly, I like the Steam Deck version,
Oh, yeah, I
but
forgot to mention that. Yeah.
yeah, it is very nice, and the fact that um, you can make your regular Switch into a Tears of the Kingdom clone isn't bad either. They're they're nice. I just don't see the need. Maybe they're just. It almost feels like they're just trying to get it out of the way, where they have these designs
Mm-hmm.
and they know if they're nice about it, Nintendo's still going to be litigious, so they might as well come out swinging first. That's how I see it right now.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to remember, I guess, because they want to be grouped into the news. Because just a couple of days ago, somebody who was okayed to show off previews of Tears of the Kingdom streamed it, and he was allowed to. But then anybody who then streamed reactions to it were then basically had like a strike, not a copyright strike, but they had a DMCA takedown on their streams
Right.
because Nintendo was like, "Hey, you can't do that," but they're like, "But that's your stream that you allowed." So I think with everybody saying, "What could Nintendo do next?" Dbrand was just saying, "Let's get a piece of this pie."
Yeah, I think a lot of that is Nintendo, like their lawyers are autonomous to the point they'll just go after everything. It's like an overactive immune system. Like, calm down, guys. Like, they go after way too much crap sometimes. But
Well,
yeah,
they
I
have
just
a lot they want to protect, but sometimes it goes overboard, and their
agreed.
their view of this kind of thing tends to be archaic as well.
Yeah, I mean, on the other side of it, I do find this kind of antagonistic just for the fact of having, you're basically aping on their style, wanting people to think about The Legend of Zelda while it's sitting there saying, go F yourself and all of that. Like that's somebody's going to see that and think it's an actual Nintendo thing. Most of us won't, but some parent may not get it, or
Oh yeah,
and
especially if a
that'll
parent buys that, saying that's a lot cheaper than the
the actual
getting a
Switch.
system, and then sees that there's a swear word on there. It'll be on like your local news.
And it's hard to tell because it's written to look like Hylian, and I thought it would have to be translated, but no, you look at it and like you can eventually it kind of clicks. Oh, those are actual letters. Oh, this is what it says right down the side in big.
I think it would be a little tougher because I don't think Dbrand stuff is accessible anywhere but on their website. It's not like you can go to Amazon and get Dbrand stuff. So I think it's more for people who know what they're getting.
Hopefully. So I've never been a fan of skins, but I mean, if you want to put them on there, cool. I think it leads to overheating, but
To each their own.
Or they peel off.
oh yeah, I hate when they peel off. All right, so next up, this is a little bit of a story, Stephen. I think you brought up before. Just a quick note: Saudi Arabia has banned Final Fantasy 16 from sale in their country, but the only reason they've given is a very vague statement that Square Enix is, quote, unwillingness to make necessary revisions to the game. So I'm guessing probably somebody is gay in the game, or they want it removed, or any number of things for that. So
It's just
yeah.
usually you don't hear about. You always hear about Saudi Arabia or the other countries of the world, like, and giving a reason for like banning a movie,
Mm-hmm.
like it having ghosts in it and such. But this was the first time I heard of country just saying like, "Hey, that specific game over there, No.
Just no.
I'm just like, what?
Bad Square. Yeah, that's an odd one.
It does make you wonder what was the problem. So now people are going to be looking for this. Like, was it this thing? Was it this thing? Was it that thing over there? What cheesed them off? Can we send it back to them?
I mean, I guarantee it's probably going to be something super innocuous. You know, just either a same-sex relationship of some type or something is going to come up in that regards that they don't like, that they ban in a lot of ways, you know?
They showed a live chocobo birth. No, I don't know.
Just laying a big egg? That's a whole, I don't know, whatever. Oh, wow. So, all right, let's go back into the Nintendo stuff and talk about, they had some new information during their latest earning calls with investors. And this was kind of a mix of different things, but Nintendo president Shuntaro Furukawa, I really hope I said that right, informed investors during a call that no new Nintendo hardware will be releasing during the 2023 fiscal year. So we're not going to be seeing anything until at least spring of next year. So the Switch, I think, is still going strong. They're kind of pushing along with that. And they have pretty good sales numbers for stuff. And I'm just going to run through these really quick, but if there's any you guys want to stop and talk about, feel free. So for new titles sold in 2022, we had Pokemon Scarlet and Violet at 20.7 million. That's a combined of the two. Splatoon 3 made 10.2 million. Nintendo Switch Sports was 9 million copies sold. Mario Strikers Battle League at 2 million, which I was kind of surprised. I have not heard any really positive information about that game. I heard a lot of complaints from it, but it sold well, I guess. And then Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was 1.6 million copies. Now, some of the older evergreen, and this is why Nintendo games never go on sale, by the way, or rarely. For that same year, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sold 8.1 million. Kirby and the Forgotten Land sold 3.8 million. Animal Crossing New Horizons at 3.6 million. Mario Party Superstars at 3.3 million, so I guess people are still playing that. And good old Super Smash Bros. Ultimate sticking along at 2.9 million. So yeah, they're doing pretty good. I was surprised not to see any of the previous Zeldas or Odyssey on this list, though.
They did mention that Metroid Prime Remastered sold over 1 million copies.
Good. That game needs to sell well. So, sales of the Switch have slowed some, but Furukawa stated that their current sales situation is a unique one. Quote, in the history of our game console business, we have never seen 10 million units of hardware still being sold at this stage. We are now in unknown territory. So even they're just kind of like, wow, this is doing way better than we ever thought it would.
It's nothing to sneeze at when they've said that they've sold over 1 billion units of software.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And it's 126 million hardware.
That's a lot of Switches. Like 7 or 8 of those are me.
4.
I think it's the just the open accessibility of so many things. We've never had a console that is this portable and offers so many different things from various consoles and eras. You want a fighting game from Street Fighter onward, you've got several different choices. You've got Atari 50, you've got
that's so good.
Sega Genesis Classics collection. Really, the Switch has become what a lot of people wanted the Steam Deck for. Or even just, when you're a kid, you're thinking, man, if only I had this console that played absolutely everything so I wouldn't have to get a Super Nintendo or a Genesis or, God help us, a 3DO. You just have everything in one console. The Switch is what people have been waiting for. And you can take it with you. It's a very unique console. And the fact that it offers, well, not quite, but nearly the same experience docked to your TV as portable, it pretty much is the ultimate console for a lot of people.
And it
Yeah.
still has a leg up on the two, what they would call the killers, Switch killers. It still has a battery life leg up on Steam Deck and a huge battery life, from what I'm reading, leg up on the Asus ROG Ally.
Mm-hmm.
Because both when I used to play just on the couch before my dock came in for Steam Deck, I was like, man, why does this only last like 2 hours? This is affordable.
That, and you can just, plug and play, which is the most important thing. I don't know about the ROG Ally, but with the Steam Deck, you have to finagle a lot, and you can't play
Yes.
everything on Steam. So you're already restricted. With a Switch, pop the card in, turn the thing on, you're good.
Yeah, even with the update last night from Zelda, I went from sitting down on the couch to playing it in like less than a minute. Like it was, and that was with the system update and the game update. I just went ahead and did both of them.
Did you get your gold coins too?
Not yet. I need to do that.
On that note, actually, that's a lot more rare than you think, because with the big boys, since there's so much more in terms of immersion, graphics, and everything, you could just pop a disc into your PS5 and go, all right, I want to play. Oh, all right, tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah.
I'll come back once everything is downloaded.
A lot of times, like I meant to mention it earlier, and I guess I completely skipped over everything about what I've been doing, by the way. Went
So
right
how
into
have
Tears
you
of the
been?
Kingdom. So I've been playing the Marvel Avengers game since Square decided to kill it and not do the microtransactions. If you play it, you get everything, all the DLC, all the suits. It's actually a fun story without any of the hassle. But installing that took like over an hour
I
because
can believe that.
I had to then I had to go in, make room for it because of course the systems are so tight on memory and they won't read from the disk. So I had to move things around to get it to install, then do updates and all that stuff. It's the same for my PS5. Anytime I put a game in, I might as well just go, make dinner or do something else for a while.
I'd like to talk to you about the Avengers Initiative. It'll take over an hour.
Yeah, it took forever.
Yeah, so many new, new generation games do that. You can't just pop the disc in and play. And I feel that harms Xbox and Sony when it comes to just wanting to play the damn game when you get home.
Yeah, just hey, here, pop this in and try it. It's a whole different story. Like if I'm out somewhere and a friend's got a Switch, I can just pull the cartridge out, give it to them, and they can try it right then and there. They're not having to worry about connecting online, looking for those updates, and fighting with all this stuff. They could be in it within less than a minute. So I'm hoping in the future Nintendo sticks with that plan because I think the Switch is the best direction forward for them. Now, a source close to Nintendo told Nikkei Asia during an interview, development seems to be progressing well, but a product launch won't happen before next spring at the earliest. Nintendo themselves came out, I think, just today and made a statement about their next hardware, that the Switch's launch announcement to launch is going to be a unique one because they announced it way ahead of time because they were having trouble during the Wii U. And they wanted to confirm, hey, we're doing okay. We're working on the next generation of it. And we had 2 years to wait for it. So whenever they announce this next one, we should probably get the system within, I'd say 6 months is probably what's going to happen.
And there was even reports, we don't know if it's connected to this, but there was even reports that Sharp was providing screens for an undisclosed, unannounced product coming out in 2024.
I hope they do OLED again because I can't go back. I just can't. I've been playing it. I'm like, this can't be that big of a difference.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Yes, it is.
I'm hoping Sharp showed them something that is what's currently what we've got, but better in order to, if it is for Nintendo, that Nintendo's like, we'll buy a batch. Like, let's make a deal. So I was like, if Sharp's doing it, it better be good.
I mean,
I
I'm
almost
hoping
bit it myself, but I I played docked most of the time, so I did not get them.
I do too. And there really was no reason for me to get an OLED, which is why I didn't get one earlier. And I knew, I was like, okay, if they release a Zelda edition or a Metroid edition, to hell with me, I'm getting it. So of course, as soon as they said Zelda, I was like, okay, this is how I die.
They got you.
Well, we still have a Metroid yet to be released.
I'd buy it. I'm saying it right now.
2 OLEDs, let's go.
You have any idea how many 3DSs I own? I have every single Zelda DS and 3DS and the Metroid one.
I just have one of each family, so if they made a revision, I bought the revision.
Yeah, I have the family of each family. Like, yeah, we got all of them. There's so many DSs and 3DSs in my house. It's hilarious. So, all right. Before we jump on the next bit of news, I'm talking about movies. One thing I was going to talk about is I did go see Guardians of the Galaxy 3 this weekend. Have either of you seen that yet?
I can honestly say Guardians of the Galaxy is one of those trilogies that is consistently awesome throughout 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
But 3, you better pack the tissues. That's all I'm going to say. And I feel James Gunn had a little bit more freedom with this one because he got away with some stuff.
Yeah, because it's the first just clear, no edit, no cutaway F-bomb, which was hilariously done because apparently it was an outtake during the scene and they were just like, no, that's great, keep it. Which I think some of the funnier moments in the Guardians movies are outtakes. Like the whole thing with Peter dropping the Infinity Stone in the first movie when he was trying to hand it over, that was a complete flub and he just kept going and they're like, that's great, let's just keep that. So Guardians of the Galaxy 3 I think is it's not my favorite Marvel movie, but it is definitely up there, and I think that this ends up being the strongest trilogy and probably better story than a lot of it all the way through. Like I just absolutely loved it. There's a mid-credit and an after-credit scene. But it's, even if there was no other part of the Marvel universe, there's a few, references and stuff for a couple of the other movies that happened, which I do like Gunn's reactions to having to deal with them killing off Gamora outside of his movie and the other stuff he's having to just kind of deal with. He just plays it off as almost like a joke in the film.
I really love the fact of all the, I don't know, a lot of stuff that you had to realize happened in this movie that was kind of like a graduation of the trilogy that I can tell you off podcast, but it was like a revelation because James Gunn confirmed it and everybody was just like, that's insane. That's what happened.
Nice. And I know he still has this big hidden Easter egg that people have not solved that he's been doing throughout the movies. They figured out parts of it. So I'm kind of curious to see how that is. It's almost like its own little mystery tied into there. So, but I really enjoyed it. Chris, did you go see it yet?
I did not.
I gave him the cliff notes because he's I guess fatigued.
I marveled out for a while. I'm not really into.
I did tell him when he does catch it, streaming or whatnot, that I felt like this was one of their stronger, not even a big arching one, but one of their strongest villains they've had. He was generally very upsetting and scary at times. So the villain was very well done here.
Yeah. Everything kind of throws a lot of your expectations out the window, and it just, if you can watch at least this trilogy, Chris, I think that would be enough. Even if you're not watching the rest of the Marvel stuff, just these 3 would be a good contained story that actually does a lot better than the other films. It's not all just like hype and bravado and craziness. It's a family kind of fighting its way through all this stuff and dealing with each other in absolutely stupidly hilarious ways.
Well, I did like
throw in the Christmas special. You get Kevin Bacon being kidnapped.
Oh boy!
And that is referenced.
It does help to watch that because they do reference it. So
yeah. What were you gonna say, Chris? Sorry.
I saw the other two, so eventually I'll, put it to rest and watch the third. Just going to take a bit is all.
Nice. You'll get there eventually.
There you
Now,
go.
you probably won't take as long as this next movie that was announced. Beetlejuice 2 is officially announced by Warner Brothers with a September 6th, 2024 release. The original film was released in 1988, 36 years ago. Don't take that long to watch the movie, Chris. Be like, star what? Just because you forgot
you
the
haven't
names?
seen the first Beetlejuice?
No, I did see the first Beetlejuice. We're talking about Guardians 3.
I was like, I know you've seen the animated series, but
I
hopefully
found out, and I'm going to have to fix this weekend. My wife has not seen Beetlejuice. I keep finding these movies she's not seen, and I'm like, I am a terrible husband. How have I not? I had to get her to watch Goonies. She hadn't seen Terminator 2. I fixed that. Her parents were very restrictive on what she was allowed to watch, and I keep taking for granted, forgetting that he's never seen a lot of these movies. So this is on my list to fix because Beetlejuice is so good. I wish Rachel was here because she would be fangirling out right now because Beetlejuice is one of her favorite things. And getting excited about something can be hilarious. But she's off having fun with a friend right now.
She would be sure to summon him, that's for sure.
So Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, and Winona Ryder are returning as director, Beetlejuice and Lydia Dietz, respectively. Jenna Ortega from Wednesday, which I still need to watch that show, joins as Lydia's daughter, and then Justin Theroux has a yet-to-be-announced role. And then, Stephen, you added in this lovely detail. The costume designer from Edward Scissorhands has joined the project. So it's going to look weird as shit. Which is great.
Yeah, because even when you saw some of like the designs and then that continue into the animated series, is they needed somebody like her to make the costumes and such. My only wonder now is because of how we know how James Gunn likes to put his brother in it. He likes to put his wife in the movies. He likes to put a lot of his friends in there, including not a spoiler, guys. Just look out for him, Nathan Fillion. But
he was great.
With Beetlejuice, I'm wondering, since it's Tim Burton, is Johnny Depp going to be in it somehow, or is Helen Bonham Carter going to show up? Are they going to be like neighbors or something? I could see it as a cameo. I'm just saying.
They probably won't have Depp. I could see him getting away with Carter, but they probably won't do Depp. Though he could. He doesn't care. I don't know. This is Warner Brothers. Disney
doesn't have much else to do at the moment, so he's got a clean slate.
Good point. So this, I think, is one of the... I'm trying to think if I've known of any movies that have taken longer than this for an actual sequel to come out. Not a remake or anything, but an actual continuation of the earlier film.
How long before episode 1? Star Wars.
Not 36 years. I mean, we had 3 movies, and then that was what, 80s to the 90s? That was only about 10, 12 years, maybe? So this is well past that. I mean, Beetlejuice came out around the same time as the end of Return of the Jedi, so we've had the entire prequel trilogy and the sequel trilogy and everything else since.
When this gets posted on YouTube, if anybody wants to comment with something that they know is longer.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I couldn't think of anything.
They recently stated that if Marty McFly went back in time now, he'd go back to 1993.
Oh God, that kills me. I'd be right before I start high school. Oh God.
He's going to the past.
He'd be like, what's a Super Nintendo?
All right, let's talk about some AAA games.
Oh, yes. We want to talk about something that's sad and crashing. Star Wars Jedi Survivor launched on April 28th and turned out to be the next in a very long and sad line of PC AAA games that are just broken upon release. While the Series X, Series S, and PS5 editions have run fairly smoothly, the PC version has been played with bugs, crashes, low frame rates, even with the top-of-the-line hardware, like all the brand new stuff, highest processors, all that, and generally poor optimization. EA stated that they'll be working to release a patch to fix this, But this is happening a lot. Like, do we know why this is occurring so much? Like, why they can't seem to get PC releases correct? Any thoughts?
I think it's because PCs now more than ever, especially with ray tracing and the latest graphic chips and graphic cards involved, it's just so much of a roulette now. You really can't know what an individual rig has for a person. Even playing the Street Fighter VI demo, I consider myself to have a pretty decent rig, not top of the line, but I still had to adjust in order to stop screen tearing from happening. So I imagine it's probably a lot easier with a console where you know the specs, you know what the console can do, you can tweak everything to look absolutely perfect. For PCs, it really is up to the user to make the game work, in an optimal way. And from what I remember seeing from Digital Foundry and from the menus themselves, there's not a lot of options for customization and optimization in those games. You have a couple of vague ways of tweaking things, but not nearly enough as, say, Cyberpunk 2077, where you could pretty much make that game work exactly as you wanted to. By the end, mind you. Not the first version, the one we have now.
Not the second version.
Maybe the third, we're not sure, but later on, eventually, you kind of could work with it.
But, this is all just papering over the cracks here. I just think PC games are a lot more time to fix in terms of bugs and things like that. And EA just doesn't want that market right now. They shipped out the stuff to the console guys. That was easier. PCs can always be patched later.
This has been my... Oh, go ahead.
Not to throw a log in the fire, but are they using a PlayStation PC development kit?
Oh, boy.
Because those PC ports on PlayStation games are doing really good.
Some of them are. Some of them not so much.
Like Last of Us, yeah.
The Last of Us was hilariously bad. God of War was supposedly really good, though. And I believe they had some issues with, was it Horizon Forbidden West?
They had a couple, yeah.
Yeah. It's very hit or miss on a lot of those. And I think you're right on that, Chris, where, you have one, maybe two targets for consoles for particulars. Like, I think the worst case scenario is going to be Series X and Series S. But then even in that case, a lot of developers are still doing PS5 and PS4. So that's an even larger gap, I think.
PS4, not so much these days, but definitely PS5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still seeing a lot of major developers putting out PS4 versions. I'm actually kind of surprised Jedi Survivor skipped PS4 this time. It's only on PS5, Series X, and Series S, along with PC.
I think that's part of the problem. They pushed it so much that there really is no wiggle room. So right. I think that's part of why the PCs are floundering with that game.
Well, another one, and this is a nice, lovely discussion, so everybody buckle up for this rant and crap. Redfall released from Microsoft, and it tanked reviews for a number of reasons. But this has kind of led with a lot of issues to Microsoft Xbox brand in general. So the game released to major issues of broken AI, graphical and texture issues for pop-in, and there's even more, showing up during like performances, during previews and so forth, that kind of show they hid the fact of what was happening. This led to a whole controversy where they had the Xbox head Phil Spencer to go on to the Kind of Funny Xcast and actually talk to them. He's very, very direct about it, but it's kind of like we're hearing a lot of these answers over and over again. So
I felt it was refreshing though, myself.
A little bit. And we're going to lead, this is going to go into, because it's a little bit of a shorter episode, but we're going to have a bit of a discussion on this. And then we're doing a new part of the show called The Big Question, which I'm going to try and do, if we have a little bit less news to focus on this, where we can actually have the discussion on these topics. And I do want to talk about some of the things in regards to Microsoft and if we have time, maybe even some Nintendo. So there's going to be a lot of me reading this off. So let's go ahead and jump into this and we'll talk about it as we go. But Phil Spencer stated during this interview, quote, "We're not in the business of out-consoling Sony or out-consoling Nintendo. There isn't really a great solution or win for us, and I know that will upset a ton of people. But the truth of the matter is, when you're third place in the console market and the top two players are as strong as they are, and have in certain cases a very discreet focus on doing deals and other things that kind of make being Xbox hard for us as a team, that's on us, not on anybody else." And I think that was kind of a very not so subtle jab at Sony about, buying licenses and restricting games being allowed to be brought over to Xbox, which, they made them actually prove that in court.
Yeah, especially when this came out, that the rumor hit that's becoming more and more about just about news with the upcoming showcases coming up, that PlayStation paid Konami to have exclusive rights to 3 of their IPs.
Yep. Castlevania, Silent Hill, and Metal Gear Solid.
So I was just like, to keep them on nothing else but PlayStation.
Yep. Talking about how comments just say for them to make great games and that will somehow turn things around, he continued, quote, "We lost the worst generation to lose in the Xbox One generation, where everybody built their digital library of games. This idea that if we just focused more on great games on our console, that somehow we're going to win the console race, I think doesn't relate to the reality of most people." He goes on to explain how this generation is different as people have a continuation from the previous generation like had never happened before, how the cost of changing systems is unreasonably high now with that built-in equity of your already existing game library, which, everybody that had PS4 digital or physical games, most of those at least moved over to the PS5 if you've got one that was compatible. Xbox has a lot of that, but you had so many less people that had Xbox One or that still have anything from 360 or original Xbox around that it's nice that it carries over, but it's not helping as many people do anything with that, So we'll talk about that really quick. Kind of, I guess, Microsoft talking about do you guys think this is a legitimate issue? Like, did this involve, like, whenever you bought your newer systems, if you have newer systems or if you're going to buy ones, does your existing library come into play in such a way that it kind of steers you in one way or the other?
I feel that, and yes, I'm going to put a lot of blame on him. I feel that Don Matrick caused quite the rift and confusion, even some misinformation.
Yep.
Cannot just flip a switch. And it came across really badly for Xbox. So people who don't follow the news that we do just picked up on the big news stories or just saw when Sony basically stuck the dagger in them saying, this is how you trade,
It's how you share games
on a PS4, and they just handed over a copy to their friend.
Yeah.
So at the time of the Xbox One generation, I worked in a retail gaming store called Game Vault that was local to my area.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people would constantly spout out it's always got to be online. It doesn't play used games. And I'm like, I have used games for sale. So some people were just, they heard that and they were like, this is not like the 360 anymore.
Yeah.
And that stigma carried through and then caused confusion, which then they were like, here's an Xbox One S, here's an Xbox One X, here's a Xbox One SAD, which, people called the Xbox One S all digital.
Such a weird decision.
So to just have all these things just confusing the consumer come out and Sony just saying like, no, you're all set. PS4, you're ready to go. It's a higher number. Higher number means good.
Yeah.
So, they borrowed a little bit of the Wii U, having the naming convention confuse them. Like, how did you go from 360 to 1?
Yeah, now what do we call the original one? Because we used to call that the Xbox One, and now we can't.
and now we call this a Series X and a Series S. So it's like, okay, you guys need to work on that, because people are not going to be in the same mentality as they were with PCs. Because love it or leave it, when graphics cards come out, the bigger the number, the better they are for the most part, because that's how you can tell you're getting a better graphics card.
Well, it's a little more nuanced than that, but for the most part, yes.
Yeah, so people are used to bigger numbers, better things.
Yeah, you're talking about like layman, just general populace looking at it.
Yeah. So it was a weird time, because that was also when, I forget the companies, but they were making their all-in-one PC boxes and releasing them in Walmarts only. So there was all these boxes. So people really got confused with the Xbox, because there are all these giant DVD-looking players, and then Mr. Sleek PS4 that definitely stands out and looks different from everything else, so it doesn't get confused when anything else kind of took the reins.
Yeah, the Xbox One looking like a VCR was not a good idea. I think it was terrible. I mean, it was a good system, but just a bad design. Chris, did any of this, like, I'm trying to remember, do you have either of the new systems, the current systems, other than the Switch?
No, I only have the Switch, if only because I put most of my money into a decent PC.
Okay.
I work and play with a PC, and usually if I'm patient enough, the games that I want will end up on Steam anyway. And Xbox, for all their floundering with the Xbox One and always online and all that unfortunate stuff, they did do a wonderful thing with Game Pass, and I have been very happy with that so far.
Nice.
So they have not been perfect, but they've done some good things here and there.
Yeah, and I do think, as you know, Phil Spencer is trying to be honest about this stuff, and he's trying to actually right this ship. It's like trying to steer the Titanic from a iceberg. Not as catastrophic. Xbox isn't just die, but that's the metaphor that for some reason pops in my head. Well, I've seen a lot of Titanic stuff recently. So I still feel like I got my PS5, my PS4 stuff carried over, but the reason I really wanted my Series X is because all of that stuff I'd already built up for all the different generations I'd played also carried over, and I can still play and use those things. So that generation, I got lucky that I did focus more on Xbox, even besides the point, and got more stuff in that environment, because I've never really liked how Sony handles some of the stuff personally. So I kind of stayed away from it unless it was like an exclusive title I could only get there, which, yeah, I know that happens a lot, but it really had to catch my attention. So we'll see. But now Spencer did talk about the Redfall issues, which I kind of blended these two together instead of focusing on that. But Redfall was a hot mess. But the biggest issue he talks about here is they had an issue with clarity on marketing. He said, quote, "I'll go back to Redfall videos on IGN of showing videos of the game running at 60 FPS on PC at the point knowing that the game was going to be around 30 frames per second at launch on console. Like, we have to be transparent about what we're showing, that what we're showing is representative of what our console customer, our most committed customer to our brand, financially committed, what they're going to see, what they're going to play, and our transparency just has to be better." And this leads to an issue I'm going to talk about in a little bit, but it kind of brings a trust issue in with Microsoft.
Definitely.
Which they're going to have to work to fix that. They don't just automatically get a pass. They've had enough passes, I think. And this has been an issue with Sony in the past before, but they, I think, have gotten better about what they show off. Things tend to be pretty indicative, mostly. You're going to have your normal marketing spin on stuff, which I get. You should take all marketing with a grain of salt with that regard, no matter what. Even stuff like, Tears of the Kingdom, they had those trailers released that looked absolutely great. And the game, to their credit, runs and looks phenomenal, but it's not quite that smooth. It's almost like they kind of smoothed out the frame rate just a little bit for those trailers,
I
which
thought
I
it was
get.
actually running at the same frame rate as Redfall, though.
And I think this was still running at a higher frame rate. So who knows? So he continued on, and he said, I'm not pointing at anybody but myself. At some point, I'll have enough knocks against me that it's somebody else here. But I think it's transparency in what we're building, what our aspiration is for the game, what it's going to look like, and what the features are. And it drives me crazy when we have self-inflicted wounds of putting things out there in communication that's confusing or misleading about what the actual end product is going to be. And lastly, last part of this, he addressed the issue of the games in development and their handling of third-party studios that became first-party after acquisitions. He said, quote, I think we need to improve on engaging in games that are midway through production when they become part of Xbox. I do think there's a different expectation for a game and even a team when you've been third-party and all of a sudden you become part of first-party. We didn't do a good job early on in engaging with Arcane Austin to help them understand what it meant to be part of Xbox and part of first party, and use some of our internal resources to help them move along that journey even faster. This is an issue entailing where everybody would think, oh, if Microsoft takes over or buys a company, they're just going to swoop in and make them do everything. And they've tried to be more hands-off and trusting of the different developers that they have under their umbrella. You know, they don't want to go in and control. And this is the dark side of what happens with that. Like they want to be, you know, good parents and let their kids be free to explore. Well, the kids have been shoving forks in the socket and one of them, you know, crushed another kid with a power wheel. No one was watching them.
Oh boy.
As a child who was ran over by a sibling with a power wheel, I know how that goes. I think there's even video of it. My little brother freaking used me to go up a curb. So Microsoft is basically going in and saying, like, look, we know we screwed up. They're pointing out what their problem is, and they're going to try and fix that. But I think from this, we'll go ahead, if y'all are okay with it, we'll jump into our big question.
Yeah.
And talk about this. So with this recent latest debacle from Microsoft in regards to Xbox, how do we feel about the company and the platform right now? And then maybe add on how we feel they can move forward with this. So Microsoft has lost a lot of faith from me. I have loved the system since I got the original Xbox. When I finally got convinced, well, I guess I'll try this first-person shooter out. Oh, Halo's kind of neat. And then I was hooked. You know, 360 was, for the longest time, the largest game collection I had. It has only just now been beat by the Switch. The Switch is now the largest part of my game collection. Xbox One wasn't as good, but I did still played a lot of it. You know, they tried to turn the ship and fix a lot of the stuff back then when Phil came in, including adding in backwards compatibility and trying to be more productive towards their consumers and showing things off. Their games didn't always hit, but they did try. But now we have problems with the Series X and the Series S where these were shown off as being, you know, powerful systems that you could do all these things on that you couldn't do on other stuff. And we're just not seeing that. You know, we're actually lacking in an ability to put out a worthwhile game without issues like Redfall, Halo Infinite, and etc. With rare exceptions being like Hi-Fi Rush, which came out and I would say was almost flawless. Like it's actually on my list for Game of the Year if Zelda didn't exist. Which I'm, you know, who knows? They just seem to be getting in their own way with things. Like I'm glad that they're getting these other developers in under their umbrella, that they're able to try and expand it out. But I'm kind of tired of constantly hearing, hey, it'll be next year. It'll be next year. Well, we've been next year for a couple of times now. I'm starting to regret buying my Series X. And I hate saying that because I also just bought one for a friend as his birthday and Christmas gift for this year. So I feel like, well, I just stuck him in the same boat as me now. they're constantly being outperformed by PlayStation 5 versions. You've got places like Digital Foundry that are always picking out little issues that are going on with the Xbox versions of these games. They always seem to be running a little bit less for frame rate and things like that, which is just weird to do. It just feels like I don't know if they're going to be able to turn this around. And with their whole issue with them saying one thing for the marketing and then blatantly coming out and being found out they didn't do it, how am I going to trust, like, what is Starfield going to be? Like, everything almost unfairly has to hang on Starfield now. And no matter what, I don't think it's going to be good enough because there's no way it can live up to write this, So I'll let you guys talk, and I've been ranting for a while. Steven, you want to dive in on this one?
Yeah. So, as Chris may know, when Xbox first emerged as a third person after Sega went the way of the dodo in terms of hardware, I was skeptical. I didn't think like I would want an Xbox, and slowly but surely, the games are what pulled me in. They had enough games that finally piqued my interest, and I bought an Xbox. And from there, even though I was always labeled as the Nintendo fan because of what I owned, what I played most of the time, I grew to have all three systems, so I could hopefully give a level opinion on especially what went through all these generations from beginning to now.
Right.
And for me, I can see some of the missteps that either happened through management or happened through developer issues. And it goes without saying that some of these issues could be from higher ups giving unrealistic deadlines that will affect the overall part of the game, such as getting Halo Infinite multiplayer or co-op later, stuff like that, where stuff's getting added in later, all the way to the ridiculousness of physical copies of Redfall having a sticker on the back that, because the back of the box says 60 frames per second, there's a little sticker saying 60 frames per second to be provided in a future patch. This is 30 FPS though, so they had to make sure that they couldn't get any litigation from it. So this is for the first time for me, instead of being more of a higher up that we can be mad at here, this is more of a misstep of instead of just waiting to put out the perfect game, they're getting anxious to go toe to toe with Sony instead of trying to be their own entity. And with all the stuff that they've frontiered and kind of revolutionized, like Game Pass, to the part where somebody else has a premium version of their service, it's something that works. Whether it loses the developer money or not, it still gets the game in people's hands. And from what I saw with Redfall, some of the things weren't necessarily about the technical parts that people were torn off of the game. It's that a lot of for somebody who's supposed to be like have all these new innovations in like online gaming, they fell short by making a game where you can't even share progress of the story. So if you play co-op, your partner doesn't get all they keep is their level. They don't keep how far you got in the game. And I was like, I thought we learned from Far Cry 4, 5, 6 that they all did that wrong, where your friends couldn't share your story. And I still will, especially having a CEO like this come out and kind of just give it to us on the table, saying like, I know we're struggling, and at least giving us that kind of a please watch our showcase. We hope to show stuff that we have been working on for a long time, so maybe they're going to pull a Pikmin 4 or Tears of the Kingdom, where they can give us a release date on things like A Perfect Dark, the Fable remake, like things that are known for being Xbox staples now.
Right.
And people are saying, like, where's Everwild? Like, you have Rare. Stop buying companies if you don't have something big to show for it. And we know the other guys are, or other guy I should say, are sneakily trying to like snap up any companies that basically strengthen their brand because they already have a good pedigree behind them. So we have stuff like that, but you know, Sony's doing a good job right now of hiding the fact that there wasn't a lot of games for PS5, but what they did have was always better than the competition. So they had that going for them. Switch was you threw everything against the wall and you basically published or released whatever stuck. So that it was hard to argue with because you'd go to a store and there'd be like a gigantic wall for Switch because there's so many titles coming out that they at least have the visual space. And unfortunately, Sony and Xbox have the tech space. So everybody's all about, does this have 60 frames per second? What's the highest I can go? Can I do 4K? Is there 120 FPS mode? Is it online? Is it co-op? Is there DLC? Is it games as a service? Something that Nintendo has only done in the mobile world so far.
Right.
So there is a lot of terminology in this generation that was not in the Xbox One generation. A lot more of this vitriol behind certain stigmas. So while we have a game like Tears of the Kingdom that is likely running like a locked 30, maybe higher, as you said, that's the same as what Redfall is running at. But people, because they can get it better on a system like PC, it's being basically looked at very negatively. And that's why I think overall Redfall's biggest problem is not the graphics. It's not even the price. The price is kind of insulting too. But their biggest thing is the gameplay, because Arcane is like made a name for themselves on 360 and PS3.
Yeah.
So for them to put this out, and everything from, I watched somebody just have a vampire come at them and they moved to the other side of the car and the AI didn't know how to move around the car. It just
Yeah.
got stuck and tried to hit him.
I saw ones
And
where they're just standing there hitting them and they're just acting like they're not there, even calling out like, I'll find you, and like they're looking at them.
so like the gunplay is not bad, but why did we get a change? Like, I know he said he was interrupting what they may have been doing and they weren't giving the Xbox difference for a company they bought, but it was just weird for a game like Redfall to not have like full cutscenes, to have the
Yeah.
textures look nicer. And yeah, people are already giving comparisons to like Titanfall, and I'm like, don't compare them to other studios that it just might have a better texture set or might just have a better pedigree of how they started. Because I always felt Arcane likes to kind of reinvent themselves each time, so they might play around with things, but this time they kind of went off the cuff. But overall, I still feel good about them, and I have fingers crossed, as strong as it sounds Sony's going to be with what sounds like a week long showcase of PlayStation 5 games. Um, if they're going to have that, Xbox just has to give us two things that I can only play on Xbox and PC, to show us like this is an Xbox staple. I need to hear that again, because I can't think of a game yet that's on Series X that I'm like, it's so good and you can only play it on Series X. At least back in the Xbox One days, whether they lost that generation or not, basically, they had a lot of games that you could say you could only play this on Xbox One. It was not on PC until like the end of that generation.
Yeah, I mean, I still like the fact that they're releasing concurrently with PC because, for people like Chris, as you said before, with you playing a lot of these on PC, there's no reason to hold off on that. Like, you're still playing under their umbrella, you're still getting their game. They're treating it as the same thing, which I think they should. So, but Chris, do you have any thoughts on this as well?
You guys pretty much covered a lot of what I would have said, but I do agree with the fact that Xbox and Microsoft has essentially, they've lost their identity and they've tried so hard to get a new one that they've been scooping up so many companies, and that's where all of um, this malfunctioning software comes from, because now they're, you know, trying to juggle so many different companies, so many different games, and things are falling through the cracks. Before, when they first started out, they had a strong brand. They had their own version of the console wars where they had Xbox Live, they had Halo, they had Master Chief. That was who they were. Now, Microsoft and PC have kind of watered down the importance of Microsoft as a software company, because now you can just wait for stuff to show up on Game Pass or Steam. And as Steve said, there's no real reason to buy an Xbox One S or an Xbox One X. Sony can still bring out those heavy hitters like Persona 6, God help me, or Final Fantasy. They can say, hey, we have this. If you want it now, buy a PlayStation 5. Xbox hasn't been able to do that in a long time, and I think it's making them suffer.
Now, let me ask both of you, do you think a lot of that is the change in attitude because they're trying to play nice for this whole Activision Blizzard deal? They can't go out and be like, and pull a Sony, and because, if they wanted to, they've got the money to do it. So help me, if this deal falls through and they can't get the Activision Blizzard, they should just take that war chest of money and just buy out every game they can get their hands on to just skip over PlayStation. Just be like, nope, it's only going to be on Xbox. We're not, maybe do PC. We're just going to have it here. But they're not doing that like Sony is, because Sony's gotten quieter deals with companies in the, over in Japan and stuff to do this. Well, Microsoft has to play nice and be like, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to try and put it on more things.
Sony has an older pedigree, though. They've got Squeenix, they've got Atlas. They are known for certain exclusives. So I think that's part of the problem. Microsoft had their power, and now Halo Infinite is a joke. Yeah. So I think they need to go back to the drawing board and make good first-party games that no one else can emulate.
Okay. Steven, your thoughts?
Yeah, I gave an analogy to Chris the other day, and I said, Sony's doing the same thing Xbox wants to do, but the problem is, while Sony is going up to the buffet and filling their plate multiple times, everybody sees it as normal. It's a buffet. So they're saying, like, what Sony's doing is normal. Microsoft is the guy who's walking in and he has a meal or a burger that's as big as his plate. It's huge, and all eyes are on him, and they're like, that's too much for him. He's taking away, money from this restaurant. He's a pig. So he's a hog. He's just trying to take all that burger for himself. Meanwhile, you got the other guy who's went up to the buffet 4 times. So Sony is playing a smart game of saying, like, we're not going to buy everything all at once, but we're going to buy what we need right now.
Right.
And then Xbox is like, we just want to get it all at once, because they thought it would be easier. And all this stuff's coming down as, especially when this latest hiccup that they're appealing came into play, is they're like, you're mentioning things that aren't even correct. You're basically saying, well, we believe you can't run Call of Duty games on Switch. We believe that Xbox is like the forefront leader in cloud gaming. I was like, that's not a thing. We knew that from Stadia, that it's not a thing, that nobody's in the forefront of anything for cloud gaming right now. It's still too unknown or experimental to be something that they can just call somebody a leader in it. I feel
cloud gaming is dangerous and unproven right now.
Yeah, and they're being punished because they have so far survived, where other large companies, Google is not some mom and pop startup. They are a giant. They cut their losses and ran, which they do with a lot of stuff. But they're looking at that going like, well, Microsoft did that. Like, no, they didn't. It doesn't work.
It pains me to see that, because they decided to make something like the Series S, I feel that they aren't allowed to hit their full potential because they have to make sure that this game works on the Series S. And I think that hurts them in some ways because people are looking at that as a PS4, PS3 version or PS4, PS5 version. And my biggest thought on this whole thing, especially with how I feel about Xbox, is dollars to donuts. When you look at the capabilities of each system of each generation
Mm-hmm.
and what it could do and what it could not do, 360, Xbox One, Series X, when you play with the options of those systems, there's so many things it does miles better than the PlayStation series of consoles.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from the delivery of just giving you the best version of the game, and instead of making you hunt for the proper version of the game, being it a previous version or a Series X version. So having that delivery was genius. And when you look at kind of, especially with TVs getting more and more um, advanced and being cutting edge, is Xbox is first saying, like, we have these capabilities in there. We have some of the best support for headphones, the best audio support, the best video support. When I first got my LG TV, it was a long time coming. There were so many more options I could set up
Mm-hmm.
with my Xbox, everything from Dolby Vision and more. And there was just so many ways I could change things around, and it was a delight to see. And then able to put in a disc and just play the best version of the game was great. And to see PS5 slowly looking over, to the next cubicle to see what the other guy's doing and copying off of his screen, saying, "Oh, that's what you have on your system? You have Discord on it? We'll add Discord then." It's like,
1440p or variable refresh rate or
yeah, you're like, "Oh, those things work. Like, we'll put it in." Yeah, we were always thinking about that. And suddenly they're like, "Oh, PS5 games look the best." I was like, "But they also copied off of Xbox's paper." But it's just because they're slower to turn their assignments in that they're just like, we rushed it. We rushed our project. And I really think in the long run, like, they just need to wait. And if they can just have a successful launch, just like a what do you call it? Just like a box office opening record for The Flash, it'll make everybody forget about Ezra Miller. Big game release for Xbox will make people forget about Redfall.
okay. With we've got the other games coming out for this. I just completely blanked on the name of the space game that's coming out. Oh, whatever. So Starfield. Thank you. I kept thinking something else. I kept thinking StarCraft.
Star Citizen.
I know that's not right.
There's Star Citizen, but that's not coming out until like PS8.
Yeah, my brain not work good today. So Starfield, if that game comes out and it's absolutely flawless, I think he's right. People aren't just going to switch over to an Xbox because they have a lot more they have to build up again, because they had a lot of good faith and they've kind of squandered that, I think, with this, because Microsoft used to have the pattern where they would bring in a developer and they would they'd get their fingers all up in the new Play-Doh and try and mold it to what they want. Sometimes would work out great. Sometimes would end up with cancellations or publishers being closed down, like Lionhead Studios, FASFA, stuff like that, and or FASA Studios. Do you think, they're going to need to kind of go back to that a little bit to get a tighter control and kind of more focus on these publishers, or some of these developers, because some of them feel like they're getting paid all this money and all this stuff, but none of them are actually putting out any work. They're just kind of milking the time. Like, hey, we're here. We're just getting the payday, and they're not showing anything.
Yeah, I'm hoping that at least they would be more relaxed on the release dates and be more focused on, this doesn't run well, we're going to get chided for this pretty big. Like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but there's a lot riding on Todd Howard.
There is. And hopefully he won't glitch during the presentation, because we don't need him clipping through the floor.
It doesn't help when you find out in the beginning that when Microsoft first bought Rare, they thought they owned Donkey Kong. And somebody had to be like, no, and they're like, oh, okay. So hopefully they've learned their lesson from that. But
God, I hope so.
but it's for a Nintendo fan even. It's really weird for me to say because I kind of like co-op aspects of games. I love co-op games. I love games where you play as a party together because it's kind of like that, almost like that D&D mentality.
Right.
And Starfield is scratching the itch that's been there for years. So it's like Medieval is cool and all, but there was never a proper like cooperative Skyrim or adventure with your friends type Skyrim. And for Starfield to have so much that it's basically looking like what a fully realized Mass Effect could be, has gotten me pretty hyped. And I've never been hyped for a Bethesda game before. So it's new for me. And that for me, like how you said that you don't feel the same way you do about Microsoft, that
Right.
will be a turning point for me. If Starfield is not what they showed on that last trailer or what Todd Howard spewed out of all his promises, I'm like, I know you're not a Peter Molyneux, so you have a pretty good track record.
Right.
So I was just like, take all the time you need. Elder Scrolls 6 can wait and forever. Just give us Starfield as it was intended, 100%. Will there be bugs in it? It's Bethesda, probably.
Oh, yeah. Will they be funny? I hope so.
But otherwise, will it run where it's not crashing on people, and will it be enjoyable? Please be.
Especially, I think the worst part of it visually for a lot of people is that Redfall was delayed multiple times, and this is what we got. And Starfield's been delayed multiple times, and they're going to have to just come with this, like to show everything. It's going to take time for Microsoft to turn this around. They, as he said, self-inflicted wounds. They've dug themselves into this hole, and they're going to have to find a way to do it. They had to buy all of these different companies in this kind of rush because they're trying to catch up to Sony. They're trying to be competitive with this, with the market leader. And that's a growing pain that's really just kicking them in the ass. Like, they're not dealing with it well. They have gone from the smaller developer to the tall, lanky one that keeps tripping on stuff and hitting their head on everything. They've become awkward teenage Xbox. So, all right, Chris, you have anything else you want to add to this?
Not particularly. This pretty much covers it. I admit that Microsoft has always been the least in my personal radar before Game Pass, so I missed out on a lot of the Fallouts and the Skyrims and the Bethesdas. I've only heard about all that unfortunate crap, but every time I want to go in, I hear about how buggy everything is, and I just decide, you know what? I'll just wait until something's good. And if Starfield is good, maybe I'll pop in. We'll see.
I mean, to their credit, they are actually pretty good about going back in and patching a lot of the bugs they find. And just these worlds are so big, they're hard to find everything. It's still amazing how much they turned around Fallout 76. That was a disaster.
I would love to for Redfall to have a, I don't know, like a rejuvenation, a renaissance of itself in terms of patches. I don't want it just to be technical. Hey, if Ark Survival can get a redo on Switch, like, come on, Redfall.
That was amazing. It's a whole update that they brought in a different developer to make a new game, basically.
You have all this talent pool, Microsoft. Love it or leave it. Call somebody in to help Arcane.
Yeah. I know Arcane tried to come out and say...
Bandai helped with Smash Brothers, and look what we got.
Arcane tried to say that, this was some of their smaller developers, not their main ones. But regardless of who's throwing who under the table, that game was still put out. People assumed because it was from the stuff with Microsoft, it was a first-party title, even though I guess it was not treated as such because it was a pre-existing. And it's just, they're going to have to pretty much polish their name again. Like, that's...
Yeah, it's
they got to get through this
thing all over again. It's Ubisoft saying, Oh, that was Ubisoft Montreal. That wasn't Ubisoft as a whole. And, we haven't even heard from Ubisoft in a while. So what's going on there?
Right.
So who knows?
Well, Spencer's words are good to hear, but he's going to have to continue just putting this into practice and prove, hopefully without losing his job, that they can right this ship and continue doing what they need to do. So, all right. Well, I think that about wraps up this episode. Hey, we're almost exactly at an hour and 30 minutes. That's amazing. We've actually trimmed the show down some. So we'll go ahead and go into our closing for this. Chris, we'll start off with you. Where can we find you on the internet?
Good luck.
All right,
Steven, you can find him in Hyrule.
Chris, that is probably the best response to that question I've ever had on this show. Good luck. Oh, man, that's great. Steven, where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me normally at loading_time on Twitter. I will be busy muting the words Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda, Legend of, because I know everybody will be playing it. And yes, this is a busy weekend.
All right. And I've been your host, Jeremy Powers. You can find me on Twitter at Zenspath, Zenspath. If you want to talk to all of us over at Discord, including Chris, he's actually there on occasion, go to bit.ly/Zenspath Discord, where you can join us and talk to us, ask us questions. Do you have a topic that you want us to cover for the big question each show, or other things to talk about? We're always open to hear about those and see what we can do. You can watch the video version of this over at youtube.com/ZenspathCom. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can get the audio version if you ever want to listen to it over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and then zenspath.libsyn, libsyn.com. Pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts, we're at. But this has been episode 88 of the Zenspath 4-Button Podcast, and we're out. Peace.
Later.
Have a good one.
Please fix your shit, Microsoft. I miss you.